Hello, my friend. This is DJ John with Music Makes It Happen in Atlanta, Georgia. First of all, I want to congratulate you on your upcoming wedding. And today, we're going to talk about the reception timeline. So get ready for toasts, speeches, dancing, cake cutting, and don't forget all that good food. You can use this guide to make sure that your wedding reception party flows smoothly. After the solemnity of the ceremony, it's time for a celebration. Many reception traditions have developed over time to become an expected and enjoyed part of the marriage ritual. While the course of events will vary somewhat from wedding to wedding, here's a general idea of how things traditionally proceed. The receiving line is the first element of the wedding reception, unless you've already had one after your ceremony at the church. It allows the bride and groom a chance to greet all of their guests, an opportunity they might not have otherwise during a large reception. The line is usually formed with the mother of the bride first, the father followed by the groom's mother and father, the bride and groom, and then the maid or matron of honor and bridesmaids. The attendants are often left off in order to speed guests' passage through the line. To avoid making the receiving line a time-consuming process, exchange brief but warm wishes with everyone as they pass by. It's also courteous for those in the receiving line to introduce the next person. For example, "Mrs. Jones, you look lovely today. Have you met my husband John yet?" You can also help pass time for guests who are waiting in the line by asking waiters to circulate with drinks and hors d'oeuvres. After the receiving line has been completed, it will be time for your guests to be seated. After all the guests have found their seats, I normally, being the master of ceremonies, introduce the bridal party. The bride's parents should be the first to enter, followed by the groom's parents, flower girl, ring bearer, bridesmaids, and ushers, then the best man and maid of honor, and finally, the bride and groom. The first dance often takes place either right after the wedding party has been announced or after the meal is completed. This dance traditionally belongs to the bride and groom, with all guests gathering around to watch or watch from their tables. Toward the end of the song, I like to invite the rest of the bridal party to join in with their respective partners, but this, of course, is optional. Just before the main meal is served, or immediately after, the best man is introduced and asks everyone to stand. Now, you and your groom should remain seated because this toast is for you. His toast may be brief and sentimental. For example, "Here's to the happiness of a couple close to all of us, Katie and Taylor." Or it can be more detailed and personal, often amusing and anecdotal. But whatever the case, it should reflect the hope and happiness the two of you have for the future. The best man then raises his glass and invites all the other guests to do the same in a well-wishing toast. The bride and groom may then get up and say a few words of thanks and toast each other. It's also customary at religious weddings to have the officiant say a blessing before everyone begins eating. Be sure to let your officiant know ahead of time if you'd like to include this so that he or she may be prepared. These days, the only two requirements for a wedding reception are cake and champagne. And menus for marriage celebrations run the gamut from a light breakfast to an elaborate dinner, depending on the time of your reception. In many parts of the country, the word reception has come to denote a full meal. Now, if you don't plan to do so, use the wording cake and champagne and hors d'oeuvres on your invitations so that they will know what to expect. The time-honored cake cutting ceremony illustrates the bond that is shared between husband and wife. The master of ceremonies should announce that this event is taking place and direct guests to the location. To cut the cake, the bride places her hand on the cake knife while the groom places his hand over hers. The first slice is placed on a plate and the groom feeds you a small piece and then receives a bite from his wife. A bite of cake, that is. The remainder of the cake is then cut by the waiters and distributed to your guests. It's customary to save the top tier of the wedding cake, which is frozen and then enjoyed on your first anniversary. Many couples also order an optional groom's cake. This is a traditionally darker colored cake than the bride's cake and is often made from chocolate, though really any flavor and color is acceptable. Often the groom's cake is displayed during the reception and then sliced and distributed to guests as take-home favors. Toward the end of the reception, I normally ask all eligible, age-appropriate ladies to gather in the middle of the dance floor for the bouquet toss, the lucky recipient of which is said to be the next woman to marry. The bride should then turn her back to the crowd and lightly toss the bouquet over her head to female guests and bridesmaids. Or you may want to face everyone and take aim at a particular friend or relative. Another way to throw the bouquet is to toss it out the window of your car or limousine to the waiting crowd as you leave for your honeymoon. Today, many brides now have two bouquets, one being a smaller, less expensive version called the tossing bouquet or nosegay, specifically made for tossing so that the bridal bouquet could be preserved as a wedding memento. In the garter ceremony, the groom removes the garter from the bride's leg and tosses it in a similar fashion to the eligible men. According to legend, the man who catches it is next to marry. Both of these ceremonies are optional, and many couples today choose not to include them. It was once customary for the bride and groom to make a getaway during the reception to begin their honeymoon, and that was also the signal that guests could start to leave. Today, however, many couples choose to spend extra time with their out-of-town guests and stay at the reception until the very end. Now, you may still change into your going-away clothes later on in the party and then come back to bid your guests a final farewell. Guests may throw rice, birdseed, or potpourri. Today, most weddings that I've been around, they love blowing bubbles as you and your new husband make your exit. The typical wedding reception lasts about 4 hours, which is plenty of time to celebrate in traditional fashion. If yours is a group you know will want to party on, inquire with your reception site when you book about paying for extra time. And here's a tip from DJ John. Designate a nearby club or bar and let everyone know where they can head to continue the fun. Well, I hope this brief outline will help you make your wedding reception party the best ever. If you have any questions at all, my friend, remember that I'm only a phone call or an email away. This is DJ John with Music Makes It Happen in Atlanta, Georgia, and I'd like to wish you and yours